What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another PokerNews podcast. I am Sarah Herring, joined by Jeff Platt, and we are 1 week post-WSOP. Kind of still feels like yesterday for me, though. I was just realizing, like, did we really take this long already?
Yeah, Poker After Dark called their week Main Event Hangover, and I kind of feel that way for us. It's like our World Series hangover. In some ways, it feels like you said, it was yesterday. In some ways, it feels like it was 12 months ago. I don't know. It's been kind of a weird last week of sorts.
I kept thinking I was going to have all this time. I'm like, oh my gosh, when the World Series is over, I'm just going to catch up on everything, sleep, exercise, right. Live my dreams. But it's like, no, dude, the poker world never sleeps, never dies. There's always something. I feel like there used to be a time, maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, where it was basically like after the World Series, nothing happened until EPT Barcelona. There was literally there was 1 month where everyone just was like, cool, this is when we're going to do the rest of our normal lives. And that time is dead. Since it's all going on now. Oh, we got our boy Tony Burns joining us in the comments, who is going to be on with us in 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. We're going to do a catch up with my man and talk a little bit about what they've got coming up here in August. So you briefly mentioned, Jeff, Poker Night in America. Affectionately, I called it PNAD or something for some reason.
Well, yeah, I mentioned Poker After Dark. You were thinking about Poker Night in America, and it all kind of merged together into PNAD, which is the new acronym for just all shows that we'll talk about.
Any show that's like happening that involves cash games, we're going to call them PNAD. It's like a great combo of all the things.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, though. I missed, but I have seen, of course, as we know, where I get all of my important information from. What's up, Vanessa? I get all my good information from the Instagram and the Twitter, and I have seen some pretty cool, interesting hands that emerged as a result of this cash game. But let's get it from the horse's mouth. You know, Jeff's got all the inside scoop on the Poker Go, Poker Central world.
Well, yeah, and speaking of that, props to Brent Hanks, who's very inside, very behind the scenes for creating pure entertainment over the last 2 nights. I mean, we had Dario Sammartino, Hossein Ensan, the two went heads up for the World Series of Poker main event title. We had Matt Berkey, all-around crusher. Jamie Kerstetter, who was on the call of the World Series of Poker main event on ESPN. Your girl, Vivian Saliba, representing Brazil, representing 888. And we had Brandon Cantu, the absolute maniac monster. So much fun to watch, you know, just putting in cold 4 bets with the old 9-4 offsuit. I mean, just went absolutely ham. And then on top of all that, we also had Mike the Mouth Matusow. And on night 2, we not only had Mike the Mouth, but we had Randall Emmett as well. So you can imagine the shenanigans that those two engaged in. And you can probably envision the table talk that occurred at this table.
Wow. It's always so interesting when you get these, you know, I guess more serious professionals, and then these people that are more, I don't want to just say hams, because like there's a little more to it than that. Like there's some divisiveness, I think. There's some polarizing figures we're talking about, and even some mixtures of the two, right? Because Mike Matusow, you know, arguably is a professional poker player, but he's unbelievably polarizing. Also, Brandon Cantu, like Brent Hanks, you're a hero. That's all I know.
I'd say so. Uncle Ron, what's up, man? You're also a hero. I thought.
Dude,
it
what
was
the
really
F,
well
Uncle
done.
Ron? Just Jeff
Platt?
Platt?
Gotta give Sarah a shout out too, Uncle Ron, if you want to stay in this chat.
Cool, dude.
I thought it was great because, to your point, the Matusows of the world, the Emmets of the world, to me at least, they do provide some entertainment value. You know, I think Mike the Mouth just going off on how bad he runs is like kind of funny, and I think Emmett just kind of blowing up after every single hand is kind of funny. And so I'm intrigued by them. Now, these guys can definitely overdo it, and they might be the first to admit that. So, like, on night 1, I'm like, oh, Matusow, this is so funny. You know, he runs so bad, and he got outdrawn again. And then he was chiming in on every single hand in conversation. And, I want to hear Hossein talk about the World Series of Poker main event. I want to hear Dario and Vivian flirting with each other. That's like the dream poker couple. How about that?
I was literally saying, I think she's like basically engaged. And after I saw the lineup, I was like, this is a match made in heaven. And she's been living in Italy for the last year or something.
Shut it down.
She's 50% Italian on her family. I was like, okay, good night. Let's get it.
Yeah, well, that'll be the true test of her engagement when you get Dario Sammartino into the mix. But it was just so fun to watch for both nights. Like I said, Cantu went nuts. There were some pretty big hands. Emmett and Matusow were seated together on night 2 of Poker After Dark, so you could tell that, like, right off the bat, they just weren't going to coexist too well. Either Emmett by himself or Matusow by himself, but the two of them together, especially seated next to each other, they kind of sort of got on each other's nerves a little bit.
Well, it's funny because I think sometimes I also have to wonder what type of responsibility these type of people feel to put on a show or something like that. This is also maybe why they're there.
Great point.
And because I can say for sure, my husband many times has said to me, hey, maybe you don't have to do the Sarah Grant show tonight. And I know what he's talking about, but basically I think there are certain people who feel like when they get into those type of weird group Lord of the Flies situations that they have to be like, I'm the fun, crazy one, and like everybody, la la la. And so sometimes I wonder, like, if you're Mike the Mouth and you're not like being out of control, like, is Randall Emmett outshining you? Like, is Randall Emmett like feeling the same way about Mike? I don't know. It's interesting when you start to value your own self based on, or feeling like maybe your value is coming more from your banter than from your play. Might be something to reflect on. Do you know? I mean, I can't even find PokerNews. Do you even watch Poker After Dark? Do you
Unbelievable.
even do?
How is there no recap?
I don't know. I need to know.
Show. So how do you think a guy like Matt Berkey felt sitting next to them? Because it's got to be so loud and so overwhelming. But on the other hand, Matt Berkey really wants those two players in the game.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's what you really have to look at, right? Is, okay, how many really quiet badasses do you want to play with? Not that many. And Berkey's obviously, especially he's done, I think, a lot of on Live at the Bike and on Poker After Dark. How much is he, loving and hoping more players like that stay in the game? I guess the ideal player is that really quiet whale that comes in here and there, like a Guy Liberté maybe or something.
Yeah, right. But you can't have 7 of them.
Well.
Right. So maybe one of them is, in Berkey's opinion, like the Stone Cold Nuts. But he knows that for a televised or streamed, whatever you want to call it, poker product, that there has to be something more, that there has to be that, added entertainment value. And this week, these lineups, they brought the entertainment value. However, and I'm sure some people hate watch, right? I'm sure some people watch hoping that Randall Emmett loses every single hand, hoping that Mike the Mouth just gets absolutely buried and crushed. And some like those two, and some like to see him win and beat the high-stakes pros and the high-stakes crushers. So I think it creates an interesting dynamic for all sorts of viewers across the board.
And I did see, obviously I saw Hussein Ensan lost aces to Jack 7 basically on the flop.
Runs so bad.
Berkey. But I was just thinking, I was like, every now and then you're just going to have to lose in a spot where you're way ahead. But I didn't see, did it sort of turn out that someone was more or less the major winner, or, I
think I haven't seen the end of night 2 yet, and like you said, I mean, no recap from PokerNews, so what are we supposed to do here? I was watching the highlights version on Poker Go. I know that day 1, Brandon Cantu was a pretty decent winner. And again, I'm not quite sure how day 2 worked out, but Cantu, man, he deserved that win. I mean, he would get involved in the craziest pots at the wildest points. He just did not see a hand that he did not like. He was in the mix all the time and made for very fascinating poker on television.
What is he doing with his life? I know that's a terrible question, but I don't know if they covered that at all. But obviously he's been around for ages, but I'm pretty sure he lives in Vegas, which makes it infinitely harder to, I think, exist in the poker world in some ways. Like anybody who's living in the United States, it's so much harder. Although he's always been a live player, but I don't know. He's a curiosity for me.
Yeah, and I know. I mean, he's the first one to say this on his Twitter account, and I don't know if it's a parody of sorts, but like he pretty much is saying, "Yeah, I'm totally busto here. I'm getting staked to play in these games." Like he's fully admitting it. Now, I don't know if it's that much of a joke or what. He was in a big hand with Randall Emmett and got Emmett to fold kings on a 7-6-4 deuce board, which was the wrong fold to one Brandon Cantu, and that was the most shocking fold I think that we've seen in a while on Poker After Dark, because again, Cantu is just so insane and he's so active and he's always putting chips in the pot every step of the way, and to fold kings on a relatively dry board, that takes a lot. That's a hero fold. Wow. I guess we could say.
Wow. Who do they have people commentate those games, or they just stream them?
Ali is in the booth. Ali Nejad, the legend that is Ali Nejad.
He does it by himself.
Always fun, actually. Brent does the quote-unquote sideline interviews, which they moved to the break desk for this week of Poker After Dark, which I thought was cool. I thought that was a really good change. So instead of like 2 or 3 quick hit questions with somebody, he sat down with them at the break desk. They talked for 5 or 10 minutes. They have plenty of time to talk. It's like a 6-hour show or so. So why not mix it up? I thought that was a good way to do it.
Yeah, I like that. And speaking of Ali Nejad and the best broadcasting teams ever, clearly Triton is missing the tippity top, which is Jeff Platt.
And Sarah Herring.
But they announced some stuff going on this week, which I could not believe, right? We're talking about £1 million.
£1 million. With today's exchange rate, that's like what, $18 million?
Yeah, like
it's a huge prize pool. 50,000 pounds out of each entry will go to charity. So, for clarity, it's £1 million that go into the prize pool. It's an extra 50,000 pounds from every single player that goes to charity. So it's huge for the players. It's huge for charity. It's huge for Triton. This is taking place in London, and they're going to go all out with it because the broadcast crew includes Ali Nejad and Nick Schulman, the best of the best, Lex Veldhuis, Randy Liu, Jeff Gross, Liv Boeree, back to the microphone as a presenter, Marle Cordeiro presenting once again as well. So, I mean, that's a crew for just a 3-day tournament. So they're going all in with this broadcast for sure. And this tournament will be super entertaining as well.
It's interesting too.
No matter what the
broadcast makes me wonder about what kind of like partnerships and things they have, because if I'm not mistaken, isn't Liv Boeree a PokerStars Pro still?
Yeah, she is. But there's no, I mean, the tournament is sponsored by Party Poker Live, but I don't know how deep they go with that partnership or sponsorship or, I don't know.
And
I mean,
so
I don't think Liv is going to wear a
idea...
PokerStars patch during her presenting.
Okay.
We'll say that.
Okay. Because basically the idea is that, though, maybe that Triton's not a competition for PokerStars at all, and that Party Poker might be, but maybe it's like mild. That's interesting. Is Jeff still a PokerStars Pro?
No, Jeff is a Party Poker Pro.
He moved.
Now.
He was part of that now, big exodus.
Exactly. So that now makes a lot of sense that, he would be one of the commentators on the call. It's like, everybody wins in that situation with those companies.
Or does it mean that Liv is going to be one of the next people to bounce from PokerStars and we just don't know it yet?
Sarah diving in, trying to create some gossip, some drama.
Mm-hmm. Let's get some juicy. I don't know, you guys. Let me know if you know. Oh, and also, you guys, if you know how to get a hold of Dario, please let us know, because I really want to have him on the podcast, but I don't have his information for some reason. Probably for my husband.
It's probably a good thing.
Gotta keep that together. Okay, well, that's going to be exciting. And actually, next week on the show, we're going to have Danny Tang, who won the Final 50 at the WSOP this year. He's one of the players people have been talking about to really watch that's been crushing the high roller scene as of recently. And he, in fact, we had to schedule we'll be doing that on Monday at 4 p.m. London time, which is 8 a.m. Pacific time or 10 a.m. Central for me. We'll be live on Facebook with Danny Tang. He'll be getting ready to the next day go to the Triton and get it going, to try to ship this thing. I don't know where all these people are getting all this money, but I am sure as heck excited to watch them exchange it at the series.
Yeah,
I like it.
I like it too, because especially the way they're doing it, where Triton, I believe I have this correct, invites a quote-unquote recreational player or a businessman, and then those players get one invite to use, and they invite a professional poker player. So the field's not going to be overwhelmed with pros. It's going to be an equal amount of pros and an equal amount of recreational players. And at the beginning, for the first 6 levels or so, you'll have them separated. So you have the recreational players at a couple of tables, and you'll have the professionals go to war at a couple of tables. And then at the end of level 6, the field will combine and it'll play down like a regular tournament. So this is a super unique concept. It's going to bring in some recreational players, some guys who are still good, like the Kerry Katzes of the world. Tony G is playing this one, but you'll also have the stone cold killers like the Stephen Chidwicks, Fedor Holtzes of the world.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It'll be really cool to see how it turns out, where the chips end up after 6 levels.
Right,
depending on the structure.
Last thing, we love this. A formal suit will be required to be worn at the final table. So these guys are going to class
Dario,
it up.
Thank you.
Yep. Somebody invite Dario.
Hello, this is Dario, and you're welcome, Poker World. Good work. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about, we've only got a few more minutes before we got to jump to Tony Burns, but looks like our boy, who you guys know I am a huge fan of. We talked to him this summer. In fact, I think we included the interview in one of the podcasts, but Cord Garcia at the top of the WPT Gardens Poker Festival right now, chip leader, and also maybe potentially WPT Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, with just 10 players left, this is the event that kicks off the World Poker Tour season. You were saying, there's usually a gap between the World Series of Poker main event and an EPT starting up or something. And then Hawaiian Gardens came in, I think, last year for the first time. They're like, we want a 5K WPT. We're going to kick off the World Poker Tour season. We're going to do it right away, like right after the main. And so they did the exact same thing this year that they did last year. I think last year they had over 500 players. This year was less, 340-ish or so. They're down to 10 at the time that we're recording this podcast. Cord Garcia, like you said, still in the mix. Eric Hicks still in the mix. Our girl Maria Ho is still in the mix. So it's a pretty stacked remaining field. Roger Teska is still there. He's always entertaining, as is Hicks. So that's a kind of a compelling lineup. This won't be one of the delayed TV final tables. I'm assuming it'll stream when it gets down to 6 tomorrow, but I am not positive. And again, you said it, Cord put on Twitter before this one started, like, anyone who wants to, make some World Poker Tour Player of the Year bet, slide into the DMs. And pretty good start. Final 10 so far in the first WPT event of the year.
That is fantastic, for one thing. And for another thing, I feel like our girl Maria's got to be in the running for WPT Player of the Year too. Like, I don't know what those.
Well, it's starting again, so it's just starting now with this event. So I don't know what the standings look like for last year's Player of the Year, but this is a fresh season.
This goes back to always, and I really do believe that the commentating helps you be a better player. I think we see it over and over again. The more people are finding themselves in the booth, the more they are having success on the felt. It's so interesting, I guess, watching the best
poker players. Except for
me. Exactly. Okay, that's fine. And I'm super happy for Cord. I think too, like towards the end of the summer, he was basically saying that he took some risks, basically moved to Los Angeles and took a lot of focus and energy to try to get better at his game and also to be just a better person. And he started working, I think, a lot with Dan Fleshman on, charity work and just basically trying to be just a better human being in general and talking about, he said, how much he feels like that's actually impacted his game and affected his game. And so it's really great to I just see him being successful. Jimmy, I don't know. Maybe Jeff knows if it's streaming now or soon.
It's not streaming now, but they are coming back tomorrow with 6. And again, I assume there will be a stream, but I haven't seen any information on it. But World Poker Tour's website should have it. And Erkut Yilmaz won Player of the Year last year. He had 4 cashes, 2 final tables, and 2 titles. That usually helps when you win 2 tournaments in a WPT season. You're probably going to be WPT Player of the Year.
Which is a perfect transition to talking about the WSOP Player of the Year standings, which currently number 1 is Robert Campbell, who is the only player this summer who did indeed win 2 bracelets.
That is correct. Robert Campbell 1, Sean Deeb 2, Daniel Negreanu 3, Daniel Zak 4, Phil Puy 5. And I think that we'll see all of them go to Europe and fight for this Player of the Year. It's a little tough for some of these guys that in Europe the only mixed events are some PLO events. So some guys who aren't typically no limit hold'em guys, like a Robert Campbell is a perfect example. We'll have to dive in for him in order to protect his Player of the Year lead. So, this format now will really favor the Sean Deebs and Daniel Negreanus of the world. Now, there aren't that many tournaments in Europe, so it's a relatively small sample size. So out of this top 5, top 10, whatever, whoever wins is going to have to run pretty good in some of these events. There's no question about that. But what I do like is that it does seem like we will have a race. We will have something to talk about during WSOP Europe.
I mean,
and yeah.
I was just going to say, it's like after all this Sean Deeb, Daniel Negreanu hype before the WSOP and their big bets and all this, I was like, the chances that they both end up like top, anything is really not that high. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous that they're after all said and done that Sean and Daniel end up in 2 and 3. Because last time we checked in on this, which I think was probably 3 weeks ago, Daniel was like 9 and Sean was like 5 or 6. So, I don't know. This is pretty impressive, actually. And for us, I guess it's, you and I have talked about it multiple times, but that basically, does anyone care about the World Series of Poker Europe? Usually only if there's a Player of the Year battle going on.
Seriously. I mean, what other storylines could you name going into World Series of Poker Europe besides we have this Player of the Year race and Sean Deeb and Daniel Negreanu are involved? Like, crickets, right?
Yeah, literally. Here we go. Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, finally, we got to get it going because I'm going to bring my boy Tony Burns on from the Seminole Hard Rock, who you guys know. We're just going to do a brief chat about what other tournaments we have between now and EPT Barcelona, for example, which is what used to be the beginning of the next season. Now we're balls deep. As soon as the World Series is over, we've got WPTs, we've got 888 events, we've got Seminole Hard Rock, Sherpos, we got it all. But let's talk a little other news. I guess we haven't really got to talk that much about. Everybody loves to talk about Phil Ivey, and this is a really interesting one.
Yeah, this is a good story from Haley. We'll sum it up briefly, but I would recommend you all go to flushdraw.net. Again, that is flushdraw.net for her whole report, her story on this fight, so to speak, between Borgata and Phil Ivey. You remember there was a judgment filed that Phil Ivey owed the Borgata more than $10 million. Borgata, was basically approved to come get Phil Ivey's assets in New Jersey. Doesn't really have that many assets in New Jersey. Then they were basically approved to come get his assets in Nevada. Maybe he has a little more assets in Nevada. And then the Borgata came to the World Series of Poker, and they're like, hey, this guy owes us money. So if he cashes out, that cash needs to come directly to us. Do not give him any money. Now, Caesars would not comment on if Ivey's cashes went to Ivey or if Caesars just took the cash and gave it to Borgata. But
that's kind of like not really. I feel like that's a little scandalous when somebody else can come and say they owe me money, so give it to me.
Right. I don't. I'm not well versed in any form or fashion. In fact, I probably botched that summary even. But it's a very compelling, interesting case. It's a U.S. District Court case, and I mean there's some power in there in those courts. And if they say you can go get money in Nevada, I mean you can probably go get money in Nevada. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out, even though we might not know how this ends up playing out, because everybody you would think is going to stay pretty quiet on the matter.
I mean, The more money you have, the better you know how to hide it, for sure. So I hope that long ago he figured out a lot of ways to, you know, keep his money offshore or do whatever it was. I mean, I don't think anybody really has any real clue about his financial situation.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm shocked and would be surprised if the litigation itself is completely over. Have all appeals been, you know, sort of used and finished? And I mean, I still don't agree with this judgment, so I'm pissed about it. I don't care. Oh, yeah, I did say balls deep. But yeah, I don't know. I still think this whole thing is a bit ridiculous, and I think it's going down a slippery slope for the rest of us if this is just how the future of, I guess, the court system could go. If it can just be like, well, wherever you are, we're coming for your money, and like whenever money comes in, we're coming for it. Like,
yeah.
And can we be serious? Like, does Borgata really need Phil Ivey's $10 million? Probably.
Oh, that's another good point. I don't know. It's a wild world with the casinos and the debts that they can come after.
Man, and I still don't even understand. I mean, obviously I wasn't part of the jury or judge. I'm not even sure who ruled on this whole thing, but I still cannot understand how you could ever make the case that he has to pay back the money that he won from the casinos. I don't get
because
how
like
that work.
Do blackjack card counters have to pay anybody back? No. Can they be banned from the casino? Absolutely.
Yes.
You know, absolutely no problem at all. But yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I feel like we must be missing some really important detail, or Borgata is greasing the right palms for sure in whatever. And that's probably more likely the case, is that, you know, whomever these judges are and whatever it costs to run their campaigns, Borgata must be really pitching in on the campaigns for these guys.
There goes our sponsorship opportunities with Borgata. But
you guys know
fun
how
sweat while it lasted.
Salty I am about all of it. And next time we get Katie Stone on, sponsored by Borgata, I fully intend to give her the business about this whole thing and find out what's going on. If you're sponsored by Borgata or you're a Borgata pro, I need some answers, okay? Anti-Chardonnay is coming for you. Man. Yeah, well, thank you, Tony. I'm glad that you agree. And, okay, so we are going to now, for those who are listening, welcome our boy, Tony Burns, onto the show. 27 minutes. And welcome back, Jeff. It's been a real pleasure, and we are going to be doing the podcast next week. We'll keep you guys posted on Twitter, but we're going to be doing it a little bit early because, is it a secret? Is the show?
Yeah, it's still a secret.
Okay, so it's a secret why, but we're going to be coming to you guys early next week and with Danny Tang, so definitely be looking forward to that. And if you guys know how to get a hold of Dario, or you have other guests... or you have other guests or other people that you think would be good or interesting to get on. I would like to get some more people from the WSOP main event, just kind of like, you know, I also think it would be great. I'm sure we could get him on Twitter. Yeah, I'd like to get some of the main event final table lists. I'm sure we can get Gary. So I'm going to push that in the course of the next couple of weeks, is just trying to get some of the final table lists on, talk about their experience, what their, you know, expectations are now that things have settled down a little bit for them. You know, how their financial lives have shifted. Does that sound good to you, Jeff?
Yeah, sounds awesome to me.
Okay, cool. All right.
Sounds good to me.
Get at us, you guys, in our DMs, Anti-Chardonnay or at Jeff Platt. And yeah, deuces.